So we all acknowledge that mobile games are garbage, right? Most range from shameless cash grab to, well, shameless cash grab. Not so much a game as a playable scam. But what if I told you that within this wasteland is a diamond in the rough? No, not Genshin Impact. No, the game I'm referring to goes by the name Punishing Grey Raven. In this video, I will go over gameplay, music, and other aspects of the game to try to explain why I enjoy it so much. So then, let's get started. If I had to describe the ping system in 3 words, it would be Matrix Match 3, which is a strange way to describe a combat system I'm about to praise for the next 20 or so minutes. After all, it certainly does a horrible job at selling the concept to someone. However, if I've done my job right, by the end of this video you'll realize why it's so good. The ping system is a very simple concept to explain, but difficult to fully understand and master. How it works is that when you attack an enemy with your basic attack, you'll randomly generate what are called signal orbs. These orbs come in 3 different colors: red, blue, and yellow. When you tap one of these orbs, you'll use the skill that is tied to the orb's color, with each character having unique skills to fit their playstyle. These skills will do more damage depending on how many orbs of the same color you tap or ping together, with 1 being the least amount of damage and 3 being the most. Now, if so far this sounds like it'll just turn into RNG bullshit, then you'd probably be right. If that was all there was to it. Luckily then, it's not. You see, this game incorporates a character action game staple, perfect evasion. However, unlike other examples before this game, it's not just another option that you can use only if you so choose to. Rather, it's the very core of this battle system. When you activate a perfect evasion, 2 things will happen. You'll get the generic time slow effect, which has been the main effect used in character action since Bayonetta. However, more importantly, all of your signal orbs will start glowing. What this glow means is that the next time you use a skill, no matter how many orbs you had pinged, it'll act like you have pinged 3 orbs. And since your dodge stamina is quite low, this means a high skilled player who can dodge properly has much more control over their damage than a low skilled player. Though this effect does have a short cooldown, combined with pinging orbs to manage their position, it still leads to an extremely skill-based combat system that uses the RNG of the orbs to its advantage, forcing the player to adapt not only to their selection of orbs, but also to dodging and attacking the enemy in a high-speed environment. It's a combat system that is both rewarding and feels great to control, and the mobile touchscreen works surprisingly well to its advantage, allowing you to effortlessly ping orbs and dish out massive damage. However, we are only scratching the surface of this combat system and what I like about it. The number one thing that makes PGR's combat so good is how well every mechanic flows seamlessly together. This can be seen especially well in the connection between the ping system and core passes. Core passes are basically a special ability or gameplay mechanic that every character has. They are the main thing that makes every character feel unique, as each one can be vastly different from one another in how they function. They can range from an ability your character activates by pinging orbs in a specific order, to even something that changes the character's gameplay entirely, and every new update, the developers come up with even more creative and interesting ways to make use of this system that make the game even more fun than it already is. These skills can even be tied to a character's ultimate, which themselves can be as complex and interesting as core passes. Each ultimate requires a certain amount of energy to use, which can be seen in a gauge in the top left of the screen. The energy necessary to activate an ultimate is not necessarily the same as the maximum amount of energy you can hold, meaning that it is not always the best idea to use an ultimate right away, even if it is extremely powerful, allowing even more strategy in how you use them. The ultimates themselves can also be very complex. While a lot of character ultimates are just a powerful move, they can have a range of different effects that sometimes completely change a character's gameplay. Good examples of this are Lucia Plume and Kamui Tenebron, who both have ultimates tied to their core passes, and it completely changes their gameplay when activated. Lucia's, for example, gives her an ice mode that if charged via triple pinging orbs, will automatically group her orbs together when activated, although it can be activated at any time. Her ultimate becomes a finisher when she's in ice mode and it is charged to max. There's also a game mechanic known as QTE, which, when pinging 3 orbs of a color corresponding to the slot another character in the team is in, will cause their icon to glow. And if during this time the character is tapped on, they will temporarily appear on the field to activate a skill. These skills can sometimes deal damage, but are more often useful for support effects, such as healing or shredding enemy armor. All of these things work together extremely well to create an amazing combat system that is both fun to play and rewarding to fully master. However, no matter how good the combat system may be, what would be the point without a good foe? The many enemies you will fight in this game are nothing short of awesome. From deadly Ronins who quickly telegraph strong attacks to test your reaction time, to floating enemies which jump around the screen a set amount of times before going in for the offensive, every enemy in PGR provides a specific challenge to force you to truly understand the combat to survive. And believe me when I say that surviving is often no easy feat. If you aren't ready, this game will kick your ass. Many of these enemies can easily take out half of your health bar if you leave yourself vulnerable. Learning your foes, timing your dodges, smart usage of orbs, and knowing when to strike is the key to victory in this game. However, whilst the minor enemies are certainly great, where this game truly shines is in the boss fights. Bosses in PGR are formidable foes. Each one is a true test of skill and are designed masterfully. Some have rapid fire attacks that are difficult to predict and dodge. Some have an awesome second phase which forces you to change how you deal with them completely. And some of them are honestly just badass. As I explained, these boss fights are very mechanically appealing, but without the outstanding visuals they couldn't look nearly as awesome as they do in game. So, let's talk about them. The graphics in PGR are extremely impressive for a mobile game. I absolutely love how sparks fly off the enemies when they are hit by physical attacks. I love the distortion effect when Luna uses her ultimate and the way that the electricity effect looks on lightning characters. Even the particle effects are legitimately impressive. What may be even more impressive then is how well it runs. I played PGR on an LG V40 Thin Q, which is a phone from 2018, and it looks this good. Not only that, but if you are watching this video when it comes out, then you will likely be starting the game on the Nier Automata event, in which there will likely be a major graphical update so the game will look even better than it does in this footage. The art style of the game also looks quite nice. Each character's design looks quite unique and it avoids looking like a generic copy of other anime style games. I especially love the post-apocalyptic vibe it gives off. It really helps emphasize the game's story. And what is that story? Well... quick spoiler warning for this section of the video. I will not spoil any major twists or plot details, but I will talk about the lore somewhat. So if you want to go in completely blind, please skip to the next chapter of this video. So, the story of Punishing Gray Raven takes place in a post-apocalyptic planet Earth. Several years prior to the events of the game, the world is in a golden era thanks to the advancement of human technology. At some point, however, humanity became interested in a new form of energy called zero-point energy, and they built a reactor to harness that power. However, not long after its completion, it failed, leaving behind something known as the Punishing Virus. Whilst this virus is directly deadly to humans, the most threatening aspect of it by far is its ability to infect machines, causing them to become violent and indiscriminately attack people. Out of necessity to fight the Punishing Virus, and due to the fact that human consciousness resists infection, people began putting their consciousness into powerful machine bodies known as constructs. In this game, you take the role of the commandant of Team Grey Raven, led by the construct Lucia in the fight against the Punishing Virus, whilst also facing off against a faction known as the Ascendants, corrupted constructs who have managed to take control of the Punishing Virus, infecting them, making them even stronger. Whilst the story starts slow, it picks up as the game goes on, and even though much of it is told through unvoiced visual novel cutscenes, the times where the story is at its peak can honestly be amazing. However, despite how good the story is, it would not be able to reach its full potential without the amazing soundtrack to accompany it. The music in PGR is honestly god tier. It's composed by Vanguard Sound Studio, who have worked on many other Chinese gacha games. Their songs have a very high-speed techno vibe to them that fits perfectly in this game. I've been playing many of the tracks throughout the video, and so I'm sure you can already tell how great they are. But I'll play a few more for you to listen to right now. Honestly, I listen to these tracks on a daily basis, and they make amazing background music. And speaking of background, there is something very major about PGR I've left sitting there. Despite how great PGR is, it's still a gacha game, and so it's going to have mechanics and gameplay that is common in that genre. And so, how bad are these mechanics in PGR exactly? As much as I may try to suggest this game to people, the number one thing that turns people away from it is the fact that it is a gacha game, and honestly fair enough. Even though I think PGR handles this quite well, I must still emphasize that certain people who are susceptible to a gambling addiction should absolutely stay away. Games are meant to be fun, they aren't meant to ruin people's lives. Still, for those people who don't have that problem, I'd like to say that although I'd prefer it if it didn't have a gacha mechanic, this game handles it well enough that even after over a year of playing, I'm still not tired of it. This game is very free to play friendly, and all the content can be accessed and completed without spending a dime. Your premium currency rewards are participation based, and the rewards that more competitive modes give are easily grindable. The only major exception being pancake skulls, which can be used to rank up any character to SS. You will get less of these if you score low, but since this game is highly skill based, even free to play players should not have a problem getting nearly as many as paid players do. The gacha is also very generous for the most part with decently high income, as well as the fact that S ranks only have 60 pity, and you can even select which A rank you want to pull for on the A rank banner for an 80% chance of getting them. Constructs known as Transcendents are also available at only 10 pulls. Although they have limitations, they are often more fun and even stronger than S ranks, especially with some new stuff they have in the current Chinese version. Most items are easily grindable in a very short amount of time, and the only equipables locked behind a gacha are the 6-star weapons, which are on a permanent banner where you can select the one you want to target for 30 pity. It should also be noted that A rank characters can often be just as fun and complex as S ranks, and I even like some of them better. Except Lucia Dawn. Her moveset makes absolutely no sense. Still, despite the fact that gacha is very generous, I get that some people, by their morals, don't want to play a game with this kind of system at all, and that's 100% fine. For those who are just uncertain though, I would give this game a shot. These mechanics are nowhere near enough to ruin the game, and you may just find yourself having a lot more fun of it than you thought you would. I sure did at least. However, despite all of the positives, no game is perfect. So, I will spend a moment going through the negatives. First and foremost, the story, whilst good, takes time to get going. A lot of the early game, I'd say up until around chapter 10, is crammed with dialogue box after dialogue box of text, often with some very questionable localization choices. To make matters worse, these early game stages are also very short, meaning you spend even more time in these extremely long scenes. It's also worth noting that whilst PGR's combat is amazing, pretty much any time there's a game mode that doesn't use combat, it is poorly implemented and often boring. The exception here being dorms, which have a surprising amount of complexity, although I rarely use them myself. On the topic of game modes, PGR also suffers from heavy game mode reuse in some events. This is offset by those event modes being very challenging and fun with different enemy hazards and combinations, but it is still definitely a problem. Even with these flaws in mind though, PGR is definitely one of the best games I have ever played, and it just keeps getting better as time goes on. Due to the fact that I no longer play on Chinese servers, the footage I will be using in this section is not mine. Rather, it's from a well-known PGR YouTuber who goes by the name Rexlin, whose channel I will link in the description. If you are watching this video in the future, then you may already have much of this in the game. A lot of new mechanics are honestly game-changing. One such mechanic is parrying. While still only usable in bosses, it adds a new defensive option that allows for said bosses to become much more creative and well designed, whilst also looking extremely badass. Speaking of bosses, the new bosses added to the game are also amazing, adding way more cinematic flair with more creative and well designed mechanics such as the aforementioned parrying, as well as kick-ass songs. They each help to add new fun and rewarding challenges, with my favorite of them being Glorious Marsher, purely because of how cool it looks. I mean, you can literally parry one of its attacks with your ultimate, and it looks awesome as all hell. One other change is the new mechanics add to Transcendence. In future updates, Transcendence not only get the ability to be put in the same team as normal constructs, which they can't do in the current update, but they also get special moves known as counters and executions, which add way more options and strategy to their moveset and honestly just looks badass. All of these things come together to prove that some things really do just get better with age, PGR being one of them. Punishing Grey Raven is an amazing game. Despite its existence as a gacha game, it manages to defy the number one thing holding those games back: fun. Games are supposed to be fun. Most gacha games rely purely on addictive mechanics and abusing the psychology of their players to keep them coming back. Fun is the last thing on the minds of those quote-unquote developers. But whilst PGR has many of those mechanics, it is obvious to me that the number one thing on Kuro Games' mind is what should be on a developer's mind. Are the players having fun? The game design, the soundtrack, the awesome story modes, and the amazing updates all prove this to me. Each one of these shows just how much thought and care goes into every aspect of this game. Every time I finish a play session of PGR, I think to myself the exact same thing. And it is a thing I think one of my favorite characters says the best. To me, this game is a solid 10 out of 10. Although I don't want to give games number ratings, so I won't give it an official review score. I implore you, however, to try this game out. I understand the reservations people may have for a game like this, but trust me when I say, you will not be disappointed. And that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for those of you who sat through the whole thing with me. I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to help me grow the channel and share this video with friends who you think may be interested in this game. The next video I will make is currently up in the air, and it will very likely be a smaller video. But some of the ideas include streaming Trails in the Sky as C or Xenogears, as I'm planning on making videos on both of those games in the future. That aside, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.